If you have ADHD and you feel like, I know what I need to do to lose weight, but I just can't seem to do it, this video was made for you. Because I spent years thinking that I was lazy, undisciplined, broken, a lost cause when it comes to my relationship with food and weight loss, when actually I was just using the completely wrong approach for my neurodivergent brain. And there are 4 things that I wish I'd understood sooner, because they would have saved me so much time, so much shame, so much guilt, so much burnout. So I'm going to share them with you guys today so you are not stuck in the same position that I was any longer. Before I get stuck into the value, all I ask is, if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please drop it a subscribe. It helps me out, and you then get reminded when I drop a new video every single week. You don't miss out. And of course, if you are enjoying it, drop it a like, because once again, it helps me out. So just press pause, do those 2 things for me now. I know everyone asks, and I know I say it on every video, but I promise it really does help me out, and it allows me to help you more as well. Let's get stuck in. So the first thing that I wish I had known was that I do not have a motivation problem. I used to think I lacked motivation, or that motivation was something that I had to really work on and make sure that all my conditions were optimal to ensure that I stayed motivated. I thought that I had to, set myself these really big, dramatic goals to stay motivated. I had to do photo shoots, I had to do this, I had to do that, but actually it was a dopamine problem. I wasn't regulating my dopamine. I used to think, if I want to achieve these things, maybe I just need to want it more, and what is wrong with me? But what would happen is, unless I had these big goals or big pressures, I would be focused for a little bit and then fall off. So the only way that I could stay motivated was to be in extremes, and I don't want to live like that anymore. But what I realized was actually it was dopamine that I needed. I needed to understand how to keep my dopamine regulated, to keep myself feeling motivated. Because what motivation is it's just a feeling. Motivation is just an energy that causes us to take action. And if your motivation is low, it's usually because your dopamine is low. And dopamine isn't just about the reward pathway that we get from like food or spending, but actually it's the approach that we're taking. If your plan is boring, repetitive, it doesn't give you a little bit of urgency or a little bit of competition, your brain just can't stay engaged. And that's why consistency feels impossible unless you are leveraging those factors. But those factors don't need to come from extremes of, doing really restrictive diets or really hard boot camps. But it does need to ensure that it is driven in a way that you enjoy. So you need to make sure you're enjoying the form of exercise and food that you're eating. You need to make sure that it does feel challenging enough so that it gives you that sense of excitement. You do need to ensure that there is like deadlines and targets to work towards rather than just this open door. Like, I need to do this now. I find that if I don't have like a target to work towards, like I want to, for example, at the moment, I want to be able to run a sub 60-minute 10K by summer. If I didn't have that, if it's just, I want to do it at some point, there'd be no urgency to be challenging myself in my workouts. But it's also ensuring that you keep your dopamine regulated outside of the process. Like if you have very low dopamine, you're not looking after yourself, you're not sleeping well, you're not doing things that bring you joy, then your brain will be seeking dopamine, and it will do it through the quickest and fastest means possible. And one of those is, of course, food, or like quick comforts, like sitting on the sofa rather than going to the gym. So consistency will feel impossible unless you are regulating and keeping your dopamine topped up at all times. Number 2 is that all or nothing thinking will continue to fuck you over unless you learn to let go of it. Like, I lived in this cycle for years of, unless I'm doing something perfect, I'm not doing it. And then the second that you mess up, it's full of guilt, full of shame. And also, not just that end of it, but it would then mean that I wasn't allowing myself to live my life properly, saying no to family meals out, taking my own food to, family dinners and things like that. Like, I've been there. And it just meant that I wasn't living my happiest life. So it's either going to fuck you over in the respect of it's going to sabotage you on your weight loss journey, because the second that you don't quite stick to the plan, you're inundated with this guilt, shame, or you are going to take it to those extremes that mean they don't allow you to live your life. And both ends of that aren't helpful. Both ends of that aren't good. And black and white thinking is very common in neurodivergent brains. Perfectionism, very common in neurodivergent brains. And the problem that we have is a lot of the approaches that come with fat loss and fitness, they kind of like lend into that. It's like you follow the plan or you don't. You're on or you're off. Your 10,000 steps, that's the rule, or you've not achieved what you need to achieve today. So the way to work through this is, I like to think of it as all or something, right? You can go all in, set targets and you can hit them all. But you can also do something. And as long as you do something, you are always going to move closer towards your goals. And this is why I like to work in range targets with, the majority of my clients rather than black and white, 3 workouts a week, 10,000 steps, 1,600 calories, 100 grams of protein, like working in ranges, because we're not always going to be all in. We're not always going to aim to be, 100% on plan. And I don't want people to be. If you've had a fucking horrendous day and you're exhausted, I don't want you dragging yourself through the streets just to get your steps or marching around your living room. I just want you to go to bed and relax. If you've got your kid's birthday and you're going to have cake, I want you to have the cake for your kid's birthday. I want people to be able to live their life. I want people to not put so much pressure on themselves, because a health and fitness journey should feel good. It should make your life better. It shouldn't be causing you so much distress and pressure. So all or nothing needs to leave the chat. It is not helping you out. It is not your friend. The third thing is more just understanding that a lot of the ways that fitness plans are set up cause a lot of friction with the neurodivergent brain. And that's why things feel really hard, and that you have to put so much effort. And ultimately, this is why, people fall into these all or nothing cycles. Like, I've got to be locked in. I've got to make my full personality or I can't do it. That was the only way that I felt able to stick to fitness routines, was to make it my whole personality, bodybuilding, just day in, day out, eat, sleep, breathe this shit. It was the only way that I could be consistent. It works for, neurotypical people, but I couldn't have that flexibility. It just felt like it wasn't possible. And that's why it felt like such friction. These rigid rules it didn't vibe with me at all. And it felt exhausting. It felt, well, to some people it felt unsustainable, but for me it was like, it became everything. And you'll fall into one of those camps. You'll either make it your whole personality and it becomes addictive, obsessive, or it's unsustainable and you're on and you're off and you're on and you're off. So what a neurodivergent brains need slightly differently. Obviously, the elements of a calorie deficit are the same, but novelty is needed. A lot of plans are same in, day out, be a robot, and especially in the bodybuilding world, it's like, you stick to the plan. ADHD brains need more novelty, I know now that I need to change my workouts and approaches up, which is why I'm actually really enjoying running, because you change it week on week, you change your distance and these sort of things. Whereas, following the set routines, I've actually just taken on a new client, and she was telling me how every sort of 6 to 8 weeks she loses interest in what she's doing. And I'm like, right, well, that's fine. Like, change it every 8 weeks. If you need a new gym or a new class or a new way to keep fit, that's absolutely fine. Despite what the mainstream will say of like, stay consistent. Actually, if you need to move your body in different ways every 4, 8, how many weeks it is, that's fine. You need flexibility, like that rigidity. Yes, it's helpful, but it also leads to that all or nothing, which is where these range targets come in. You need to reduce your barrier to entry. Like, neurotypical people might not find it hard to just go to the gym. But for neurodivergent brains, we have executive dysfunction, which means that things that require a lot of steps, so like big fancy meal preps, getting your gym bag, it can lead to shut down and not doing it, which is where simplicity is key. So what's really worked well for me for allowing myself to eat healthy consistently is finding very low friction foods. So a bit more convenient. So things like your root veg mash, your microwave rices, pre-cooked meats, pre-chopped vegetables, frozen, pre-done fruit, anything like that for me has really helped. Whereas anything where it's like, you've got the fresh veg, you've got to chop it and boil it, and too many steps just leads to shut down. I've tried it. I've tried to do, big fancy meals. It does not work. So you need to reduce that. And then the fourth thing that I wish I'd known, and this is more of like a personal one, but I think a lot of you will relate, is that food noise does not mean that you are greedy or that you lack control or discipline. It's a signal, right? That's what you need to think about, that when you're constantly thinking about food, it isn't that you are just this food obsessed like goblin, which is genuinely what I thought I was. I used to make a joke like, Lucy Cook, Cookie Monster, you're just obsessed with biscuits, but it wasn't. My brain was asking for something. But remember, our brain cannot like literally say word for word, good day, this is what I want from you. It's just going to give you a signal through what it can do from like the chemicals and the hormones. When you are deficient in something, your brain will always let you know, right? It's like if you've got an iron deficiency, you're going to be tired. If there is something missing that food can fill that void with, your brain will make you think about it, which is why obviously when you're really hungry, you think about food. But constant chronic food noise isn't a hunger issue. It's the lack of dopamine, which we've spoken about. It could be a lack of energy, which is where sometimes when you're really tired, you think about food. It could be emotional dysregulation, which is a really big one. You're not managing your emotions. And if I think about the time where, The times in my life where my food noise has been highest, it's either been when I've been on a really restrictive diet, so restricted of food, signal is we want more food going on, or I've been really, really stressed, really, really, really unhappy, not looking after my dopamine levels. I think about my teenage years and first year of uni where I was quite unhappy. That was where that food noise came from. And when you're just trying to ignore it, like, it's kind of like just turning off the fire alarm without actually putting out the fire. It's going to keep getting louder. So food noise is all about understanding the signal and what is it that your brain actually wants. And I just wish I'd known all of these things, because it would have made fat loss and fitness stop feeling like an uphill battle, you know, if I'd understood all of these things. And this is why I do what I do, to give you guys that information. And that is ultimately why I actually created my Wired to Thrive program, which is a 10-week program designed for neurodivergent brains to lose weight, break the yo-yo diet cycle, make fitness, health, all that good stuff fit. It's teaching you all these things that I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known exactly why I struggle, and I wish I'd known what I could do about it. You know, I've explained today more like the what, the why. In the program, I go into that, okay, so this is exactly what you can do to make it work for you, because I want everyone to get to the same position I'm in, where they don't feel broken. They can maintain a body that they look in the mirror and think, yeah, I look good. They can be healthy, they can be fit, they can be strong, they can stop feeling like a lost cause. And that's exactly why I created this program. Now, at the time of recording this, Spaces will be live, but whenever you are watching this video, it could be 2 years down the line. So the details of if you can get a space, if it's a wait list, everything you need about the program will be in the description for you. And obviously if spaces are live right now when you're watching this, and you have any questions, just drop me a message on Instagram. I'll be more than happy to answer that. But over and out for today. Have a wonderful one, and I will see you on another video.